The morning hadn't even stretched its legs when trouble walked straight onto my driveway. Problem. A stranger stood at my cedar fence clipboard badge. Attitude all wrong. Pain? She claimed she had the authority to access my garage. Promise? By the time the sun kissed the barn roof, she'd learn exactly whose door she was. Threatening, and she wasn't alone. I was. Sipping my father's old coffee mug, same chipped handle he held during long dawns at the farm when a sharp tap echoed across my porch railing. The kind that doesn't ask permission. The kind that believes it already owns the land beneath your boots. She stood there with stiff posture, fake confidence radiating like heat off asphalt. A laminated ID badge swung from her neck. It looked official at first glance, until you saw the crooked font and the corner peeling up like a discount sticker. Sir, she said, voice clipped. I'm here regarding your garage operations. Garage operations? I blinked once, twice, letting her feel the silence. Confident people hate silence, it scratches at their nerves. Inside, I kept calm. Stay steady. Let her show her cards. A cool breeze carried the smell of wet dirt. The lake behind my property rippled like it knew trouble was settling in for the day. What exactly concerns you? I finally asked, leaning one shoulder against a post. Casual, relaxed, controlled. Her jaw tightened. The activity happening late at night. The modifications. The vehicles. All of it violates section. She flipped the clipboard dramatically. Section 4A of the Ridgeview Compliance Act. There isn't a Ridgeview Compliance Act. I knew it instantly. She wasn't here by mistake. She was hunting for something she thought I was hiding. The wind shifted. My flag on the pole, my father's flapped once with a deep thump against the steel. A reminder to stand my ground the way he always did. What department are you with? I asked. Her eyes flickered. Not a full panic, but a crack in the paint. I oversee neighborhood safety reviews, she answered. Too fast, too rehearsed. To fake under the porch light, the ink on her badge had bled slightly. Homemade internally, a quiet alarm bell went off. She doesn't know what she's stepping into. She just thinks she does. She lifted her chin. I'll need access to your garage for inspection. No, I said simply. Her face twitched. She wasn't used to resistance. Predators rarely are. I'm authorized. You're not stepping foot inside my garage. A muscle jumped near her eyebrow. Her right thumb tapped her clipboard, fast, rhythmic, anxious. Psychology sign. Building aggression, not confidence. Behind her, tires rolled over gravel. A dark blue sedan crept to a stop at the property line. The driver pretended to check his phone, but his eyes stayed on us. Her back up, so she didn't come for conversation. She came for confrontation. My heartbeat stayed calm, steady, measured. Middle-aged experience has a way of smoothing the edges younger men would sharpen. She stepped closer. Too close. You've been conducting activities inconsistent with residential guidelines, she said, forcing authority she didn't have. The community has concerns about what you might be storing inside. Storing? I held back a smile. Lady, I store fishing rods, old tools, and half-finished chores inside. That's about it. But saying that wasn't the goal. Understanding her motive was, what exactly do you think I'm running? I asked, watching her pupils shrink. A prohibited operation, she hissed, and I will get inside that garage one way or another. There it was, intent, clear as day. She wasn't asking permission. She was announcing her plan, and that plan had nothing to do with the HOA. A single pine needle drifted down from the cedar above us, landing on her clipboard. She brushed it away like it offended her existence. The gesture told me everything I needed. She wasn't here to enforce rules. She was here to dominate someone. People like her always are. Dad always said, a man's home is his last line. You guard it with dignity, not panic. I kept hearing his voice in the back of my head as she stared at me, like I was a locked door she'd been dying to break. Through, she lifted her phone and snapped a picture of my garage door. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Documenting violations." "There are none. We'll let the board decide." "What board?" She paused. Just half a second, but enough. Her eyes cut toward the blue sedan. Backup man nodded once. Barely noticeable, coordinated, prepared, rehearsed. Something deeper was happening here. I took a slow sip of my coffee, let the warmth anchor me. "You don't have the authority to inspect anything on my property," I said. She smiled, not a friendly smile. A victory smile. "We'll see." As she turned away, her foot landed on my gravel and something metallic slipped from her jacket. A thin, black tool. Long, picked, narrow, lock bypass tool. She froze. I froze. Our eyes met. She snatched it fast, too fast, and stuffed it back into her coat. Then she walked off like nothing happened. The blue sedan rolled behind her slowly, deliberately. My father's mug felt heavier in my hand. This isn't a complaint. This is a setup, and whatever she was planning. It was coming soon. As she disappeared down the sidewalk, a single thought settled in my chest, like a stone dropped in still water. She's preparing to force her way. Isn't in my garage. Not to inspect. Not to complain. But to find something she desperately wanted to believe existed, and she'd cross any line, legal or moral, to get inside. My cedar fence creaked as a breeze rolled through. The barn roof glinted under the climbing sun. Trouble wasn't approaching. Trouble had already arrived, and it had a clipboard. Most people back off when you tell them no. She wasn't one of those people. Her stare stayed glued to my garage door like it was calling her name, and I knew something dangerous had just begun, and she wasn't planning to act alone. 2 quiet mornings passed. The kind where fog still clings to the lake and the cedar fence smells like cool sap. I was on my porch at 6:30 a.m., holding my father's old metal mug, when I caught movement near the edge of my property. Not wind. Not an animal. Footsteps. She stepped out from behind the shrubs. Same woman. Same stiff posture, but this time with binoculars hanging from her neck. She wasn't even pretending anymore. "Morning," I said. Calm and steady. She lowered the binoculars without shame. "Survey work? Survey of what?" "Activity patterns." There it was. Another made-up title. Another fake layer of authority. And still, her eyes wouldn't leave my garage. Inside, I kept my breathing slow. Don't give her emotion. Give her rope. "What exactly are you looking for?" I asked. She blinked faster than before. A psychological tell. Her brain was building a lie her mouth wasn't ready to deliver. "I'm ensuring neighborhood safety," she said. "Your garage lights turn on at unnatural hours. Cars come and go. Something doesn't sit right." I almost laughed. My unusual activity was just me fixing an old fishing motor at night. But she didn't want truth. She wanted a narrative. I stepped off the porch. Dew chilled through my socks. She didn't react. She didn't have to. She'd already decided she owned this territory. "You don't have authority to inspect anything on my property?" I told her. Her lips curled into a thin smile. Some rules don't need permission. That line. That line told me exactly who she was. Someone who believes her suspicion counts as law. A wind rolled off the lake, blowing the flag on my poles so hard the metal clip snapped once, a deep, hollow sound. My father always said, a flag sounds different when trouble's close. He was right, and trouble hadn't even stretched its legs yet. Across the street, Mrs. Halperin's curtain shifted. She wasn't the type to pry, which meant the sight of this woman on my property looked wrong enough to pull her from her chair. The neighborhood had been peaceful for decades. No shouting. No patrols. No drama. Now there was a woman with binoculars and a badge printed on bargain store laminate. "Tell me why you're really here," said. Her jaw tightened. Her shoulders squared. A predator bracing for challenge. There's something inside that garage, she whispered. Something that explains everything. There it was, the obsession. Not concern. Not HOA duty. Not safety. Fantasy. She had built an entire world in her head, and my garage sat right in the middle of it. A narrative-driven mind doesn't want truth. It wants confirmation. You're building a story, I said. One, you want to be real. Her nostrils flared, and she took a step closer. Stories don't make late-night noise. Tires rolled over gravel. That same blue sedan from Chapter 1 pulled up. But this time with two people inside. One unfolded a map. The other stepped out with a tripod and started scanning my driveway. Who are they? I asked her. They assist with neighborhood oversight. Oversight group drives around measuring people's driveways. Do when necessary, her tone was. Cold, prepared, practiced. And then I saw it. The man from the sedan pulled a thermal scanner from the trunk, not a camera, not a clipboard, a device used to check heat signatures around seams, windows, and structural joints. They weren't surveying. They were searching, and they were searching for a weakness. The lake behind my house went completely still. One of those eerie pauses nature takes before things erupt. My cedar fence creaked under a rolling breeze. Birdsong quieted. These small silences always mean the same thing. Someone's about to cross a line they shouldn't, and they crossed it. When they started taking pictures of my garage windows, I walked down the driveway. Put the camera down, I said. It's legal, the woman snapped. Front view structures aren't private. This is my driveway. This is private property. She hesitated just for a second because she knew I was right. But then she whispered something to the two men, and they opened the trunk again, this time pulling out length rods, a measuring wheel, a vibration meter. Protective gloves, no. HOA group carries break-in equipment. This wasn't inspection. This was planning. I stepped closer, calm but firm. Why my garage? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. Her throat bobbed once. Another psychological tick, fear mixing with obsession. You have something inside, she muttered, and I will document it. With or without your cooperation, there it was. Not suspicion. Her pupils dilated slightly the moment a person's mind shifts from maybe to must. As she adjusted her clipboard, sunlight hit a page I hadn't seen before. I read the words upside down. Alternate entry night access. My stomach clenched. Not theory. Not investigation. They were forming an actual break-in plan. I slowly straightened my shoulders. I won't tell you again, I said. Leave my property. She didn't even blink. We're not done. And then she turned toward the men. Check the window seam. My heart dropped. That old side window patched. By my father, 20 years ago, was the softest point of my entire garage. How did they know that? The man with the scanner walked straight toward it. Pointing the device along the frame, they were mapping the entry zone, and they weren't even hiding it. Anymore, Mrs. Halpern finally stepped outside, clutching her shawl. Is something wrong? She asked nervously. The woman spun around. Ma'am, please return indoors. This is official business. No, it isn't, I said. There's no inspection today. None. The woman's lips pressed into a straight blade of anger. You're obstructing a mandated safety review, a review you invented. Her face twitched, jaw, eyelids, cheek, the look of someone whose fabricated authority has just been challenged publicly. She turned to her team. Prepare the report. We attempt entry tonight. Tonight, no hesitation. No shame. A criminal plan delivered like a schedule reminder. They packed up their equipment slowly, calmly, like professionals finishing a rehearsal. The blue sedan rolled away, but the woman stayed one moment longer. long enough to stare at my garage door with the hunger of someone who'd already imagined herself inside. Then she whispered, "We'll be back," and walked off. I stood on my driveway with my father's mug in my hand, and one decision is echoing through my chest. If they come tonight, they won't find an empty garage. They'll find me waiting. Night doesn't usually bother me. I've spent most of my life fixing engines by barn light or sitting on my porch with my father's old mug while the lake turns black and glassy. But that night wasn't like others. That night, my garage wasn't just a building, it was a line, and they were coming to cross it by sunset. My property felt different. Still, quiet. Too quiet. The cedar fence creaked every few minutes under a warm push of wind. The barn roof clicked as metal shifted from the day's heat. Even the lake held its breath. I stood beside my garage door, checking the lock knot because it needed checking. Because my father used to say, "A lock doesn't guard the door. A man does." I sipped from his mug, cool no end. Let the bitterness settle in my throat. My porch light buzzed softly. The smell of cut grass from earlier still hung in the air. Inside the garage, I killed the main lights and turned on a single lamp in the corner, the one that barely glows enough to outline shapes. The rest stayed dark. If they wanted shadows, I'd give them shadows. I sat on an overturned wooden crate, hands steady, heart steady, mind steady. Let them try. Around 11:17 p.m., the gravel at the end of my driveway whispered, not loud, but enough. I moved deeper into the shadows. A pair of headlights flickered off, then a car door clicked shut. They were on foot. I crouched beside a shelving rack, letting the half-lit radio cables cast strange shapes across the floor. Then I heard it. Her voice, low, whispering, commanding window seam. Right there. She'd brought the same two men. Their silhouettes moved across my yard like they'd done this practice run 50 times. My jaw tightened. They weren't nervous. They were confident. And confidence makes people stupid. One man knelt at the side window my father's old patch job outlined in moonlight and placed something against the frame. A thin tool. Curved at the end, the woman hovered behind him like a conductor waiting for the first wrong note. The second man walked perimeter, checking angles, looking for motion. He paused near the cedar fence, ran his hand along the boards. "Dad. Looks like someone finally came for the fence you built with your own hands." Wind rolled through the grass, rustling the weeds near the barn, and then the first man whispered, "I've got the seam loosened." Her shadow leaned closer. "Open it." The old window gave a reluctant groan as it was nudged. Not enough for a person yet, but enough for a hand. Maybe a head. I could see her silhouette vibrate slightly with excitement. Not fear. Excitement, that was when it hit me. She wasn't trying to expose something. She was trying to catch something. A fantasy. She'd built one. She now needed to justify. She'd convinced herself she was the hero of her own investigation. But the hero doesn't climb through windows at midnight, the criminal does. The two men steadied the frame. He pushed. Once. Twice. Then the latch inside cracked loose. The woman inhaled sharply like she'd waited years for that sound. "That's it," she whispered. "Push it open. We're gaining entry." My hands curled around the edge of the crate. "This is it." One man slipped a gloved hand inside. Then he slid his entire arm through, feeling for the inner lock. He found it, with a soft internal click. My garage officially became a crime scene. They didn't know I was 10 feet away. The woman grabbed the bottom of the window and began lifting it just enough for one of them to climb. "Through you first," she ordered quietly. The taller man nodded and hoisted himself upward. His boot entered first, then his knee, then half his torso. Moonlight outlined him perfectly as he started sliding through the frame. I stand up from the shadows. I stand out of the darkness with slow, even footsteps. No rush. No panic. Just calm. He froze halfway through the window. She froze outside, and all three realized at the same time I'd been waiting for them. Evening, I said calmly. The man jerked, instinctively trying to pull back, but his belt caught on the window frame. The woman stepped backward, breath hitching. "What are you doing in there?" Chef stammered. I tilted my head. "My own garage?" "That's an interesting question." The second man stepped forward like he might help his partner, but froze when he saw the phone in my hand. The screen glowed bright with something. Unmistakable. A live recording. I pointed it toward the woman. "You're on camera," I said. "All three of you have been since you stepped on my driveway." The trapped man swallowed hard. "Look, we're responding to Suspici. I'll stop you right there," I said, advancing slowly. I let them see the confidence in my stride, the ownership in my tone. The man who wasn't going to be intimidated on his own property. You forced a window. You entered without consent. You brought tools. You coordinated. You filmed. You stalked. Her mouth opened, desperate for an excuse. "You're hiding something?" She spat. "We're preventing danger?" "Your behavior, your late-night activity, ma'am," I interrupted. "You're not preventing danger? You're committing a felony." Her breath became shallow. Her shoulders trembled, and then she broke. "This is entrapment," she shouted. "You set us up. You kept your garage dark on purpose." "I kept my garage dark," I said, "because it's mine. And darkness didn't bring you here. Your obsession did." Her eyes darted everywhere but me. Denial, fear, humiliation. She backed away until she hit the fender of the blue sedan. "You're not going to call the police," she whispered. Voice cracking, I raised an eyebrow. "Funny, you were planning to call them on me." Then, faint at first, not mine, not theirs, real. Ones, growing louder, approaching. Fast, her face went white. The trapped man finally pulled himself free of the window and stumbled backward. The sirens cut through the night like a blade. She shook her head violently. No, they can't. How? "Did I send a message an hour ago?" I said. "Reported suspicious activity. Didn't give names. Didn't need to." Blue and red lights broke over the cedar fence. The patrol cars turned into my driveway. Flashlights clicked on. Voices rang out. Hands where we can see them. The two men froze instantly, but she didn't. She reached for her clipboard, the fake one, the one. She hid behind "Every time, officer." "I'm with the ma'am," the responding deputy said sharply. "We already ran that badge. It isn't real." Her clipboard slipped from her hands and hit the gravel with a dull thud. She swallowed hard, lips trembling. "Please," she whispered. "I was just trying to— I didn't mean to." One of the officers pointed at my window. "The latch is broken." Forced entry confirmed. Another flashlight landed on her toolkit. Another on her surveillance gear. Another on her fake badge. Another on the marks at my window frame. She started shaking, her head fast, tears forming at the edges. This isn't fair. He was hiding something, his behavior, his garage. I stepped forward, calm, steady, grounded. "You want it inside?" I said quietly. "And now you get to explain why." They cuffed the two men first. No resistance. She backed away when they approached her, then forward, then sideways, like a trapped animal, looking for a gap in a fence that wasn't there. When they finally took her hands, she broke completely. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "I was protecting the neighborhood." "No," I said gently. "You were terrorizing it." She looked at me with wide, broken eyes, the look of someone whose fantasy finally shattered as they read her rights. Moonlight caught the patch on my cedar fence behind them, a reminder of my father, a reminder of the line. I was raised not to let anyone cross. When the last patrol car pulled away, Lights fading down the road, I finally breathed again. The lake let out a long ripple. The barn metal popped once as it cooled. The flag moved softly in the night breeze, like it understood the victory. I looked at the broken window, the one Dad patched years ago, and I felt something settle inside me. Not anger. Not relief. Just certainty. A man's home isn't defended with fists. It's defended with patience. It's calm. With knowing exactly who you are when someone tries to tear you apart, she thought she could. Break in, she learned she couldn't break me. If you've ever had someone push against your boundaries, your land, your home, your peace, tell your story in the comments. You're not alone.